Welcome back to our webinar series. Hi, let us know where you're joining us from. Drop in the chat where you're from. I'm in Massachusetts. My name is Kristen Vincent. I'm the Director of Marketing for Center for Responsive Schools, and I'm with Jane Kofi. Jane, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining us from Virginia.
Yay. Jane's the Director of Programs for Responsive Classroom. And I can see in the chat, everyone's putting where they're from, and you're from all over. Wow, this is amazing. Got some international audiences here all over the US. This is awesome. What a great crowd. Thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. So we're going to dive right into our topic tonight, which is about helping students bounce back from everyday disappointments. And so I know that you know that we've all seen students who crumble when things don't go their way. Maybe they lose a game, they don't get called on, or maybe a friend chooses to play with someone else during recess, and these can be really disappointing for students. How students handle these disappointments can affect their learning and affect their relationships with others and their sense of confidence. So students who recover quickly when things don't go their way are able to have happier, more productive days at school. And that's why we're talking about this today. And resilience is the skill that they need. The skill to bounce back from setbacks is having resilience. And resilience is not a trait that people have or don't have. It actually involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed. Resilience also is not about toughing it out or reacting to every setback with a smile. Resilient people can still feel sad or angry or frustrated when they're faced with disappointments or setbacks. But resilient people are also able to find ways to move forward, to tackle challenges with creativity, hope, and a positive attitude. So in this webinar, we'll explore how to support students through everyday disappointments with strategies that build resilience to help students bounce back. I want to be really clear about the purpose of this webinar. I know that we have students in our schools who may be experiencing major stresses and maybe students who have disabilities that prevent them from bouncing back quickly from disappointments. So this webinar focuses on students' abilities to cope with everyday setbacks and everyday disappointments that they encounter in school. If you have reason to believe that a student has a significant mental health condition, you should consult a school counselor, a psychologist, a social worker, or an administrator. The strategies shared in this webinar tonight can help every student develop more resilience, but it doesn't take the place of comprehensive intervention plans for those who need more. So we're going to dig into some common reasons why students struggle. So as I mentioned, resilience is learned. The ability to handle setbacks is a set of skills that students can learn and strengthen over time. Some students haven't had the coaching or practice they need to build those skills and to turn them into helpful habits. So understanding the reasons students struggle with setbacks can help us be patient and help us support our students in developing their ability to cope. So some of the reasons why students struggle might be that some students haven't been taught how to handle disappointments or have had very little opportunities to practice their own coping skills. These students probably don't know how to put problems into perspective. They might not have any skills to soothe themselves, or they don't have a way to find another option when the first one doesn't work out. And every problem is seen as catastrophic. And once upset, these students have few strategies, maybe other than crying or pouting. Their emotions take over, and it seems impossible to them to do anything differently. They haven't learned that they do have the power to chart a new course of action after a setback. Also, many students who get easily frustrated are also discouraged, and that means that they have low self-confidence or maybe even a fear of failure. They believe that they're not smart enough or strong enough. They also feel like maybe they're not good enough or good at anything. Even students at an early age can doubt themselves, and sometimes these students will go to great lengths to avoid taking risks. Because if you take a risk, you could make a mistake and fail. And even if you avoid risk taking, your students are still going to make mistakes, right? That's part of learning, that's a natural part of growth and development. But if they do fail, it just confirms these low opinions of themselves, and then these students may retreat even further. So, and this is closely related to the next point about some students have unrealistic expectations of themselves, or sometimes unrealistic expectations of classmates or teachers, or maybe just life in general. We see this a lot with perfectionism. So when people don't act as they hoped, or when events turn out differently than from what they expected, the students view these as setbacks, and they view them as a major disappointment or a failure rather than just something that happens every day. That's like a common occurrence. Some students, some of their life experiences have led them to believe that things should always go their way. So perhaps their parents or caregivers have tried to shield them from having to face any negative consequences. Or maybe if they want something and students have been told no, they learn to cope by pouting until someone gives in. And so the longer students go without facing challenges and the fewer opportunities they have to develop skills for resilience, over time, these students may start to lack the ability to cope with even a very small minor challenge. And some students might gain a feeling of significance from the attention they get when they're in distress. So they may have learned that when they act upset, people rush to check on them or to solve their problems. They might have also discovered that if they appear to not know how to do something, someone else will help them or actually do it for them. So these students may feel important only when other people provide them with this type of attention. And so the last reason why students might struggle is a lack of sleep or adequate nutrition. This can cause or really exacerbate students' reactions to disappointments. So students who are overtired or hungry have to use a lot of energy just to get through the day. And so when things don't go as they wish, they're much more likely to overreact because they just don't have the energy to use their self-control or use their coping skills. So I'd love to hear from you after hearing about some of these common reasons why students struggle. I'd like you to think of a student you know who has trouble bouncing back from disappointment and might be lacking resilience. Is there anything from this list that you think might be an underlying reason? And you can go ahead and share in the chat. What do you think is an underlying reason for why the students that you work with have trouble bouncing back? Yep, unrealistic expectations, the perfectionism for sure. Not having a chance to practice. So parents who shield them from facing disappointments. Yep, low self-confidence. Multiple reasons from this list. Sure. Or just being sick and not feeling well, coming to school when you don't feel well, you're tired, you're hungry. Yep, wanting that attention. All of these can contribute to why our students might struggle bouncing back from something that we see just as a very small, minor disturbance or minor, interruption. Um, yes, and someone is saying that they're the art teacher and they see all the students in the school, and all of these reasons can resonate with students for sure. So what can we do about it? Well, the first thing we can do is be proactive and teach resilience before disappointment happens. We can use setbacks and the times of disappointment to practice resilience because it's going to happen, and we can use those moments to do some practicing. So students who easily crumple when disappointed need our help in developing new skills and habits. And they also need our patience because this process takes time. It takes time to build new habits. It takes time to learn different ways of reacting. So here are some strategies that could work And you can be thinking about the students that you were thinking about when you drop those ideas in the chat and think about if these strategies might work with them. So one of the things is students recover faster when they feel seen, known, and supported. So students need to believe that they're capable people with unique qualities and talents. And so when we take the time to get to know them, really get to know their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, we're letting them know that we know them. And as you get to know each student, you'll be better able to anticipate situations that might be challenging for them and help them prepare for those. And you'll also have a better sense of how each student behaves during times of disappointment, whether they're capable of calming down quickly and thinking rationally, or if they're going to need some comforting and maybe more time to restore themselves. Consistency certainly reduces anxiety and helps students feel secure enough to take risks. So as often as you can, follow the same daily schedule and try to stick to established routines and post routines and schedules and clearly mark any changes for students. And also, something that's really important is for us as the adults working with students to monitor our reactions to changes in the schedule and other surprises that happen during the day. Students take their cues from us. So if you are even keeled and calm, students will mirror that behavior. As much as you can, prepare students in advance for any changes. So when you know students are about to encounter a challenge, such as a tough assignment or maybe a change in the daily routine, they were looking forward to having outdoor recess and now that's canceled. Do your best to prepare them. Invite questions. So after you share the news or bring up something that might feel disappointing to students, invite them to ask some questions. Sometimes that's enough to relieve a lot of disappointment or anxiety. You might even want to practice what's going to happen. If something's going to change, you might do a walkthrough or a demonstration just to let students know what's coming up. Another strategy is to teach students about emotions and the brain. So all students, not just those who have trouble coping with setbacks, can benefit from a basic understanding of how their brain functions. Even young students can understand that when they're upset, their brain does not work in the same way as when they are calm. So we can help students learn that they can change their emotions by using their brains. You may consider partnering with your school counselor to set up maybe sessions, have them come in and teach about the brain, or do a workshop with your students on stress management. Our Fly 5 curriculum includes a component called the Mindful Student, and that includes mindfulness lessons and posters and tools that teach students about their emotions. So that teaches about purpose of emotions, that all emotions are neither good nor bad. Emotions are there, and how we react with our emotions is the important part. And Jane just dropped in the chat a link to our mindful student cards and activities and our emotions posters, which might be helpful to teach students how their brain is working. Also, modeling and practicing specific coping strategies in the classroom is really important. And I'm going to share 3 ideas with you now. So one thing you can do is teach students to name emotions. So to bounce back from disappointment, students first need to recognize their feelings and apply coping strategies. So for young students, we can display faces expressing various emotions and label them for students. For older students, you have a chart of emotion-related vocabulary words that we use with students. And our Fly 5 curriculum team has created some great resources on helping students name and understand emotions. You can teach students calming techniques and strategies such as taking deep breaths, stretching, doing wall push-ups, maybe just counting in their head or going for a brisk walk. And many teachers also in their classrooms designate a spot or a soft chair where students can go to calm down when they're upset. Box breathing is one that teaches students just to slow down their breathing. We have a free resource we can share with you about box breathing. And then the third way, our third coping strategy that you can use is helping students put setbacks into perspective. So distinguishing between a minor setback or a minor disappointment and a major one can be hard for any student, but it is really important to help students frame that. So one way to teach that skill is to give students a variety of scenarios that helps them sort that out. So talking about and labeling what are small hurdles and what are big hurdles. And things, small hurdles would be things like you don't get called on in class immediately when you raise your hand. You don't get the color of the marker that you want, or you got tagged in the freeze tag game at recess. Big hurdles are someone makes fun of you or teases you. You worked hard on an assignment, but you did not get the highest grade. Maybe your team lost the championship game. Those are big hurdles. Those are big disappointments. And I think talking about that, having conversations, making lists, labeling that, talking about the feelings that go with these small and big disappointments is a really great strategy to use with your students. And then finally, we want to make sure we're reinforcing students' efforts at handling disappointments. So there are students who are doing a good job with maybe sort of brushing something off or shaking it off and coming back, or being disappointed, and you can see their face kind of go through their emotions and then kind of reframe and get right back to work. So we want to reinforce students' efforts, even if they reacted inappropriately at first, but kind of corrected themselves midstream. We want to make sure that we say we notice that, we know it's really hard, we see you working hard at that. You can always follow up with a reflective question to help students figure out what made the difference for them. So I'd love to hear from you again in the chat. What works in your classroom, or what do you think from this list might be effective for you to share to build those coping skills, to build resilience with your students? Yeah, a lot of modeling and practice. A take a break system. So in responsive classroom, we have a strategy called positive timeout, and students do take a break when they need to like refocus or calm themselves, get their emotions back under control to rejoin the activity or the game that was happening or the lesson. Someone wrote their attitude, my attitude. So like their attitude, a coping skill could be how we frame things for students and what we're modeling. Role play is a great strategy to practice those skills for sure. Yep. And so even if you're teaching all these coping skills and allowing students to practice resilience, some students will be set back or set off by everyday disappointments. It's going to happen, right? So how we respond helps students continue to learn and build skills. So as we mentioned, we want to stay calm, consistent, and compassionate. Remember that students develop new skills over time and at different rates. But as they develop greater coping skills, they'll just continue to make mistakes. Like that is part of learning. So the calmer you are when they fail, then the better off they'll be able to, reset themselves as well. So here are some tips for responding in ways that'll help our students. So we want to keep our cool. Our calm presence can help students re-regulate themselves. It could be annoying or frustrating for us, especially if we've been working on this with our students for a while. But we want to just make sure we're stepping in calmly. We offer student strategies like deep breaths, take a short break. We want to remind and redirect in a calm voice. And we want to acknowledge the emotion. So saying things like, I can see that this is really disappointing for you. It's really important to acknowledge those emotions. It's not helpful to say it's not a big deal, because to that student in that moment, it is a big deal to them. So sometimes just a pat on the shoulder, some kind words, letting them know, do you need some time to calm down? Or why don't you step over here and take a deep breath? Remember our strategies we've been practicing. So this doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable, but what it means is we're offering some comfort because we know that that's what they need in the moment. We want to avoid minimizing. So again, the moment a student is distressed is not the time to try to shift their perspective. In the heat of the moment, they're not able to reason. So we want to help them calm and then help them reshift. So if we say, it's not a big deal, get back to work, that it is a big deal to them, especially if they're showing you with their face and their words, that it is a big deal to them. So offer them those calming down strategies, remind them that they have the tools to, get it under control or to, soothe themselves so that they can kind of put it in perspective. And we want to guide students towards solutions. So instead of trying to convince the student not to be upset or negotiating with them, we don't want to do that either. We want to use neutral language to lay out the options. So the best thing you can do is step back and let the student make the choice. So we might say, you can sit here and take a few deep breaths, or you can move to the calming corner. You could ask, do you want to go get a drink of water or do some wall push-ups? So that way the student is able to make a decision for what's going to work well with them and allows them some options for them to take control back. You could also use open-ended questions to help the student figure out what they need. You could ask things like, what could help you to feel ready to try again? Or what might help you get back on track? And again, you'll know your students to know whether you should just offer them a couple options or ask a question like that. And again, we want to reinforce the effort, notice those moments of self-regulation, even if it's imperfect. So that we call them leading edge behaviors. So they're moving in the right direction. We might say something like, you were upset and I saw you took a few deep breaths and then you came back to the table. So notice that and point it out when you see it in students. So I want to acknowledge that these strategies are not always easy for us to put into practice when we want to respond in the moment. But which of these might be helpful for you to try with your students when they are struggling to bounce back? So share in the chat what might work for you or what might be a strategy you can put into place to help your students and to support them. Yes, keep your cool and fake it if you have to, right? So you take a deep breath and inside your head might be all these chaotic thoughts and you're just going to stay calm, cool, and collected for sure. And choices is really important, naming and acknowledging their emotions. Yeah, I can see by the look on your face that you're very upset. I notice that that's disappointing to you because your shoulders are, really kind of hunched over. So labeling those emotions, naming them. Yeah, that's really important. Taking a walk. Yep, great, great ideas. And then I know, and you know, that even with all of these efforts and strategies in place, there are still students who might need more scaffolding and support. So maybe they're not yet developmentally ready to integrate these skills, or they're not ready to change these long-held habits, or maybe something has happened at home that strained their ability to handle stress or handle a disappointment in school this week or today. So for students who need additional support, you can offer individual coaching or problem solving conferences. So a one-on-one meeting with a student can be really effective. And the intention is to share the responsibility of solving an issue with the student. So it sends a very powerful message that you believe the student is capable. And the belief in one's own abilities is a key to recovering from setbacks. So Jane just dropped in the chat a link to problem solving conferences if you want to learn more about those. Written agreements or reflection tools can help track progress and help students stay on track. So some students may continue to have trouble handling minor setbacks, even after you've tried all of these strategies. And so maybe an individual written agreement might help them. And the agreement provides a very concrete goal that the student can work towards and really spells out strategies that they can use. And it becomes like a reminder for them. So you would use something like this after you and the student have tried lots of other strategies. And these written agreements can be something that are like visual cues. It could be written out for older students, like, typed out. And again, we can offer, yep, Jane has dropped in a link to learning more about written agreements. And then finally, you can partner with all the experts around you. So in schools, we are surrounded by experts and we can ask for help from administrators, special education staff, school counselors, school mental health professionals. And maybe the student has a deeper issue or needs a more structured, more comprehensive plan. And everything that we talked about tonight will be helpful, but there are students that need more, and we can reach out to the professionals around us to help. So my key takeaways to wrap up our time together tonight is that resilience is learned, and it's a skill that can be developed through practice and through patience on our part and maintaining positive relationships with our students. We want to teach coping skills proactively before there's a problem, so don't wait for the meltdown. Things like role play, modeling, these are really, really important. And our students see and hear everything. And so when we face disappointments during the school day, your calm, steady response can really model for all students how we can acknowledge what's happening and then model how to bounce back. And that is really, really powerful. We have some resources on these topics. You can always visit our websites. We have lots of free articles and resources and downloadables. The strategies I shared in this webinar are from a book called Teasing, Tattling, Defiance, and More, 10 Positive Approaches to 10 Common Behaviors. We also have many new one-day workshops, and these are being offered in person and live online. So we gather on Zoom live, and some of the titles are here. And these workshops do dig into some of the things that I mentioned tonight. Even empowering math learners, that workshop is about strategies to build confidence in your math students, to help them see mistakes as learning opportunities and helps them bounce back. Math can be a subject where it's hard for students to bounce back from disappointments. And so that workshop digs into that a little bit as well. So I want to thank you so, so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoy these Thursday evenings with all of you. And just a reminder, we've had a schedule change. So the last session is now going to be on December 11th. But I will see you for the next session on November 6th, and we're going to explore strategies for de-escalating defiance in the classroom. So that is an important topic as well. Thank you so much for taking time out to be here. We really appreciate it. We'll send out a follow-up email with links to all of these, to the recording and all of the links that we dropped in the chat. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week. Thank Jane. See you later. Bye.